You've been told you need to be strong. But what if strength doesn't always mean holding it all together? What if true resilience feels more like water, flowing, flexible, and alive with God's love? In this series, you'll discover how you can move from surviving to thriving, finding a strength that heals, restores, and carries you forward.
From a pretty young age, I started to get called the F word by kids at school. Freak. What did you think I was going to be called? I hated getting called that word, freak. I did really well in school, and the thing was, when it came to school, I was a bit of a freak. Look what people wrote in my yearbook. They wrote this in my yearbook. Things like, I hope you fail. Just one E, please. And I hope you get an E on something. As I developed strategies to cope, I began to believe the dark side of being a freak, which is that you're different than everyone else and no one can understand or be close to you because you're a freak. You're all alone. And as I got quieter in class and chose my words with more care and became more guarded, I found greater and greater distance between me and my peers. Even among friends, I could feel isolated because of the coping strategies that I developed. And in a lot of ways, I survived those early years of school, but I wasn't thriving. School is a tough place for me. Now, God's desire for us is thriving, not surviving. And we're going to wrestle today with the question of how do we experience and live out thriving? You see, we were made for connection with God and with others, and often our experiences in life, just like me in elementary school, decrease our ability to make those connections. True connection requires attachment, safety, and authenticity. Without those things, and many of us have significant barriers to those things, we end up feeling alone and disconnected from the world around us. If that's you today, I have a word for you from Untitled Chapter. It's for you and it's for me. God's posture toward any fragmented, hurting parts of yourself is one of compassion. Compassion is an important part of strength, and strength is found in all that is required to heal. Strength helps us to survive distressing, overwhelming, and traumatic experiences, and strength is also tenderness, compassion, feeling our feelings, and learning to rest. This is the flow of strength. We're continuing today in our series called Strong Like Water. This series is based on a book of that name written by Untitled Chapter. Chapter is a licensed professional counselor and has received additional training in her specialization of trauma. She'll be doing a Q&A session with Pastor McKell coming up on March 8 at 7 p.m. In this series, we're using a unique metaphor for strength, strong like water. Like water, our strength flows in response to challenging situations. And, like a skilled sailor, we learn to adjust to changing seas. And at various times and in particular situations, different types of strength are needed. Like water, we flow. Now, stress and trauma, they require situational strength. Holistic healing involves integrated strength. And transitional strength from compassionate resourcing, that's safety and support, helps us to move along the flow of strength toward a more holistic and sustainable way to be in the world. Transitional strength is the middle space in our strong like water flow diagram. It's where we begin to attend to our wounds and the traumatized parts of ourselves with safety, with resources and support. But some unprocessed pain might still exist. As I got older and as I entered middle school, I had other experiences that helped me to process being a freak. My family was consistently a place of safety, of attachment, and authenticity. I knew I could talk about anything with my parents, and I always knew that they loved me and cared for me. I began to experience transitional strength through my family. Transitional strength is where two realities can exist at the same time. We can have pain, but also joy. We can feel grief, but also hope. And We can own being a freak and start to let people know that freak. Transitional strength is moving toward a place where we can observe how we're feeling and what we've experienced, and though we may not be glad about it, we can respect its impact and the reality of it. So with my family supporting me, transitional strength is when I began to have a choice about how I engage my story, my body, my strength. I could own that, well, maybe I'm a bit of a freak and I'm worth getting to know. I don't need to stay isolated. Situational strength is primal and neurobiological and reactionary. And in contrast, transitional strength is developing influence on how we interact with ourselves, our world, with others, and with God. Through transitional strength, God invites us toward connection and fullness, toward an integrated strength. The key verse for this series is found in the words of Jesus about his purpose. I've come that they may have life and have it to the full. Jesus gives us life, that's situational strength, but Jesus has come that we might have life to the full, and that's integrated strength. Transitional strength is about moving from situational strength to integrated strength. It's moving from life to the full. As you heard with me and my family, they provided me with relative safety and attachment and authenticity, and safety is critical to moving toward integrated strength. The more complicated or chronic our traumatic experiences have been, the more we're trapped in situational strength, and the more time we'll need to spend in this transitional stage of strength, building resources that support the disturbances our bodies are holding. Safety is an important topic to pause and reflect on. It's critical for transitional strength. So let's ponder together. Let's answer this question. What are things, maybe like circumstances or characteristics of people, that help you to feel safe? Let's take a moment and let's talk about that. Another thing that's critical for transitional strength is love. Jesus told his followers that the greatest commandment is to love God with everything that you have. And then he said, the second is this: love your neighbor as yourself. There is no commandment greater than these. Love yourself. Love God and love your neighbors and love yourself. See, God loves you, but man, sometimes that can be so hard to believe. Sometimes it can be hard to love ourselves. Transitional strength communicates to your body that you are worthy of compassion and care. Transitional strength is the place where we receive support and resources needed to be with our pain. That's me with my family. It doesn't make the hardship or pain go away. Getting called a freak, it still sucks. And it's not a shortcut to healing or a more integrated strength. It's a place where we process and we heal. So let's make this idea of transitional strength practical today through exploring some aspects of transitional strength related to relationships. So transitional strength with relationships involves connecting to others, connecting with yourself, and connecting with God. I'll start with connection with others. There's a strength that we draw from being with another person or with people that we trust. There's a safety that we draw from being with certain people. And in transitional strength, we're both fully present to our pain and suffering, and we can experience connection and support from others. Now, for me, one person who has been huge for this has been my wife, Jana. And I've found this from other friends too, but Jana has had the biggest impact on me in terms of transitional strength. And real early in our dating relationship, when we were still in high school, I found in Jana a safety, a connection, a support that allowed me space to be with all the different experiences I had up to that point. We talked through huge moments in my childhood, difficult moments, including my feeling like a freak. And here's the thing about that time with Jana. Jana was just a high school student like me. We weren't experts on anything yet. Jana wasn't saving me. Jana wasn't fixing me. Jana didn't need to make it all better. Jana was with me in the hard stuff of life. And we both need this for ourselves, and we can offer it to others. One way to think about the strength of connection with others is as compassionate witness. This is our compassionate resource for connection with others. And when someone offers compassionate witness to us, they resonate with, they understand, they share our feelings. And through what the other person is offering, we become more attuned to ourselves. Compassion in Latin literally means to suffer with. Andy Colbert notes, suffering with someone while being attuned to them is powerful. It conveys a sacred solidarity. Now here's the thing about compassion. Witness is different than witness. A witness is an observer. They see or they note what's happened. Witness is being right in it with the other person. It's not as an observer, it's being a participant with the other person in what they're experiencing. And this witness, it's incredibly powerful in counteracting the lies you might believe when you're hurting. It's so tempting for our bodies to tell us lies like this. Your pain doesn't matter. You're not allowed to feel. You're selfish to feel. You're too much if you feel. You're alone in your pain. That last lie was what my body was telling me in elementary school. You're alone in your pain. And thus, Jana and my close friends have been incredibly powerful in my life because witness counteracts these lies. Witness gives us strength and courage to find a new path forward amid the pain and hardship. But the temptation to return to aloneness and quietness and pain is still there. You may progress and then return to needing transitional strength all over again. One of the biggest sources of hardship in my life over the past year has been around my daughter Kate's health. As we've received medical diagnoses and undergone tests and experienced 2 major surgeries and recoveries, it's been really tempting to just marshal through it. Keep working, take care of Kate, just do the things and get through it. And it's been tempting to minimize or diminish the pain of what my whole family has been going through. It's been tempting to ignore the sadness and grief as we've had to let go of lots of plans and hopes and dreams for what this past year would look like. It's isolating to go through a medical procedure that, well, most people have never heard of before and don't fully understand. And this is where a couple close friends and many people who know and care for us in the community of Sycamore Creek have been with us in this hardship. And that matters to us so much because that witness counteracts these lies. See, being connected to others allows me to express my grief for things like Kate not being able to play one of her favorite sports, water polo. Through connection, I have permission to admit how hard it is, not just the medical procedures themselves, but also the impact of them. Being connected to others is a physical reminder that people are with me in the midst of Kate's health issues, that they want to understand. And I get to make the effort to open up to what I'm experiencing and feeling so that they can understand. And that opening up is important because all of this connection with others isn't enough if we don't internalize it. Connection with others is not enough if we don't connect with ourselves and who we are. We need external connection, yes, and we also need to do it internally because transitional strength relationships also involves connecting to yourself. This is compassionate witness with yourself. And I don't know about you, but sometimes I can be my own worst critic. I can be kind and compassionate to others, and I will be so hard on myself. Transitional strength is found in being kind to myself. It's internal support of ourselves where we don't just get our strength from others, but we tap into the strength that is our own. It's meeting ourselves where we are with compassion. Let me give you one tool today, a compassionate resource for connecting to yourself. This is the second compassionate resource for today, and it's an art tool that involves 3 things: attune, respond, and tend. So starting with attune, it's basically this, it's noticing. That's what attune is. This is naming your experience and what's going on in your body. It could be your feelings. It could be a sensation or a sense of something. Attuning taps us into the reality of what actually is. For example, I could come home after a trip. I could set down my luggage and I could feel a sense of relief and rest that I'm home. Or I could come home after a trip and I could feel a sense of dread and anxiety as I think of all the work that I need to catch up on because I've been gone. Attunement is just noticing these things within me because we notice. What we notice will then determine our response. So the next part then is to respond with compassion. So attunement tells you what's going on, and responding allows you to do something about that information. Responding is mobilizing your energy to act on your behalf. So again, returning to our returning home from a trip example, if I do feel dread and anxiety upon returning home, I might acknowledge that coming back from being gone for a while from a trip can be hard. I could take some deep breaths. I could grab a snack and maybe allow myself to settle in a bit at home. Then I could give myself a moment to think through, well, what do I need to do with emails and with work? And I could develop a plan for how I'll tackle those things the next day. Which brings us to the last part, which is tend to your needs. This is an awareness of your needs that comes from attuning and responding. And it's keeping an eye out for your needs while making yourself available to others. So again, if I walk in the door after a trip filled with dread and anxiety, guess who's going to bear the brunt of that? It's going to be my wife, Jana. But if I've eaten a snack and I've made a plan for tomorrow, now I'm in a better place to connect with Jana. See, connection with yourself is intimately tied to connecting with others. Being connected with yourself makes you available to yourself and your needs, while also being open to others and their needs. To return to what I shared earlier, Jesus gave us a simple commandment in Mark 12 to love your neighbor as yourself. Now, science helps us to better live out the commands of Jesus. And in this case, neuroscience has shown us that our bodies are not able to attune to the experience of others. We are disconnected from ourselves. Healing happens when we turn inward, and it also happens when, as we are able, we're able to turn outward to others for connection and for support. Transitional strength is found through a connection with others, love your neighbors, and is balanced by a connection to yourself as yourself. I just gave us an example of coming home after being gone and walking through the door, and that's one scenario of what this might look like. So let's take a moment to share what are your own feelings or experiences or thoughts with coming home after being gone for a while. So here's our next question for discussion. What do you usually feel when you come home after being gone for a while? Let's take a moment and let's talk about that. Connection with others isn't just about other people or even just about you. The witness of people works with the witness of God to create a framework for strength. Connection creates safety for us to move along the flow of strength, which brings up our final aspect of transitional strength with relationships, connection with God. Jesus is one of the most powerful aspects of who God is. Jesus is God in the flesh. Jesus is God embodied, God with us. Jesus is a tangible reminder that God joins us. God came in the person of Jesus to be God's physical presence here on earth. God honors you and cares for you and values you. Through Jesus, God is saying to us, this is how far I will go to love you. Jesus is the compassionate witness of God. Jesus reminds us that God is not distant and impersonal, but that God is embodied and tangible and real through Jesus. Psalm 23 is a fantastic psalm that I often recite during times of grief and hardship. It's a psalm that points us to the witness of God. Now, I'm going to invite you to slow down a moment with me and listen carefully to this psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. The phrase in that psalm, he leadeth me, it means to lead or to guide to a watering place, to bring to a place of rest and refreshment. God tends to us and leads us to the places that allow us to experience rest and refreshment. God is a God of connection. God builds safety in and through us because this connection is available to us. It is God with us. Now, the amount of connectedness that you experience with God, it will determine your hope. It'll determine your courage. It'll determine your very life. Being connected with God, it won't make every problem go away. A connection with God will not remove everything and make it perfect in your life. Psalm 23 it's a psalm about God being with us even in the valley of the shadow of death. And the valley of shadow of death is still there. And the enemies in Psalm 23, they are still present. But as the Canadian physician and writer Gabor Mate wrote, safety is not the absence of threat, but the presence of connection. We've mentioned safety. We've mentioned love. Connection is also vital for transitional strength. It's compassionate witness of others and of God that gives us strength. And one of the ways we connect with God is through another compassionate resource, which is savoring whatever is good, right, and nourishing in our world. Whenever we experience something good, we're experiencing something of who God is. And learning to connect to goodness is a part of what will actually allow us to heal. You see, it's possible for everything I've talked about so far today to be incredibly difficult for you. In fact, it might not even seem helpful. For many people, we are so wrapped up in a lifetime of valid pain that grace and compassion are something that we just don't allow ourselves. We don't allow grace and compassion from ourselves, and we certainly don't feel it from others. For some of us, goodness hasn't felt possible or accessible. So here's our lifeline today in the midst of our hurt and pain. If we don't tenderly and compassionately tether ourselves to goodness, we remain disconnected from our truest healing. See, we must learn to fight to see and to hold tightly to goodness, to notice it. This is connection work. And it's going to require just that work. We need to train. We need to cultivate holding goodness. Goodness will tie everything we've talked about today together and help us move forward with strength. Now, part of noticing goodness and connecting through goodness is with glimmers. So again, here's our final compassionate resource for today. We cling to goodness through glimmers. And a glimmer is this. It's an experience, a sensation, or a micro moment that cues safety, calm, or regulation in our nervous system. You might think of a glimmer as the exact opposite of a trigger. A trigger is anything that activates an embodied memory or a past threat or trauma. And it can be a smell or a taste or an experience or even a person. On the other hand, a glimmer is something that helps us connect with a sense of our felt safety. Glimmers make us feel connected and curious and creative and compassionate and alive and more. Glimmers are goodness. So for me, a glimmer is mountains. When I'm in mountains, there's a part of me that literally lights up. It's like I become more of myself and more fully alive. I feel strong. And well, you can even show me a picture of mountains or a reel about mountains, and I'll experience this. I absolutely love mountains. Mountains are a glimmer. They help me to tap in to my true self. So as you ponder your own glimmers, consider this verse from Paul's letter to the Philippians. And now, dear brothers and sisters, one final thing. Fix your thoughts on whatever is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. Think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. Paul's writing about glimmers. Hold on to them. Fix yourself on them. Grow your roots deep into the goodness that is God. Allow your brain to be shaped by goodness built on the ultimate resource, God with us. Compassionate witness, attune, react, tend, glimmers, All these compassionate resources point us toward the God who loves us deeply and passionately. In this there is hope, a tangible form of hope. You see, through Jesus, there is a paradoxical hope, a strength like water that can become embedded in who we are. Paul writes, we are pressed on every side by troubles, but we are not crushed. We are perplexed, but not driven to despair. We are hunted down, but never abandoned by God. We get knocked down, but we are not destroyed. Through suffering, our bodies continue to share in the death of Jesus so that the life of Jesus may also be seen in our bodies. The life of Jesus in our bodies. That is strength. Jesus reveals God's profound love for us and his willingness to become one of us, to live, to suffer, to die, and we are invited to carry that love around in our bodies. But it's not just a suffering love, it's a resurrection love, because this is how we become fully alive. We can carry resurrection in the core of who we are. When we connect with others, when we connect to God, when we cling to those glimmers of good, we're practicing resurrection. We're participating in making things new, including who we are. As Colbert notes, in a world where there is so much pain and destruction, seeing resurrection is no small thing. Resurrection is becoming something new. I'm no longer the person who I was in elementary school. Thank you, God. I'm no longer the person who I was in middle school. Thank you, God. I'm a new creation through transitional strength that I found from connection with others, connection to myself, and connection with God. See, more and more I'm encountering goodness and I'm clinging to goodness. I'm more and more Mountain Mark, who is connected to goodness. This is the flow of strength, moving us from situational strength to transitional strength to integrated strength. May we together tap into this strength through connection with others, connection with ourselves, and connection with God. As Christ transforms us into something new and better and whole. Amen.